Emotional school readiness is often a neglected part of school readiness because it's not something that the teacher actively works on within that grade or year. But school readiness depends just as much on emotional maturity as it does on scholastic ability. Now, generally, when we do assessments, we work on the golden rule that a child is cognitively school ready if they score a test age of 6 years, 3 months on our school readiness assessments. But quite often, I've actually had children who have tested much higher cognitively even on those tests, but I've still recommended that they're not school ready based on their emotional maturity. And this is especially true when you look at children whose birthdays fall towards the end of the year. If you think about it, a child whose birthday is in December is virtually a full year younger than a child whose birthday falls in January. And it's also a myth that all children reach the same level of maturity at the same age. Children vary greatly in their levels of emotional maturity, and it is partly influenced by parenting and environment, but it also really largely depends on a natural developmental process. And emotional maturity will naturally increase, but usually in its own time. So, what exactly do we look for when we assess emotional school readiness? We're definitely not expecting children to be little adults. So it's absolutely natural for a preschooler to still be childlike, to still be more focused on fun than anything else, and to be largely egocentric in the way that they think about the world. But we do expect them to display some of the following traits. Firstly, a certain level of confidence. Not every child is a born leader. That's not what we're expecting. But we want to know that your child is confident enough to speak up in a busy classroom where they're uncomfortable or when they need help. The truth is that a busy classroom environment like grade 1 is a lot more formal than the preschool years. And it doesn't always allow the teacher to pay individual attention to each and every child. So children need to be able to let the teacher know when they need a bathroom break, when they're feeling ill, when they don't have all the right tools that they need, or when they're being bullied. Because if children don't speak up in that kind of environment, they might often fall behind without the teacher even noticing. Separation is also a key element. So is your child able to separate quite easily from you in the mornings, or is every drop-off a long, teary affair before you can finally let them go? Now, some crying in the first few weeks, maybe even the first month, is absolutely normal, and we expect it. But teachers don't have the time to try and console your child if they're crying all day long for extended periods of time. Does your child take responsibility for his belongings? For instance, does he remember to put his lunchbox back in his bag when he's finished eating? Does he remember to put his pencils in his pencil case? Or is a teacher constantly having to run after him to make sure that he's got everything he needs? Is your child able to concentrate for long enough? Now, grade 1 teachers will usually allow for lots of short little breaks during the day. We know that children at that age still need to move a lot. But a child who is constantly getting up out of his seat and constantly moving around can be quite disruptive, and that's going to very soon start eliciting complaints from all the other classmates in the class. What about problem solving? Can your child solve most of the minor little problems that crop up on a daily basis? For instance, will he know to ask his friend to borrow a ruler if he doesn't have one? If he left his lunchbox at home, will he know to ask the teacher to phone you and ask you to bring it? And will he go and look in lost property out of his own accord if he's lost a jersey or socks or shoes? And also, this relates to social interactions as well. Your children need at least some basic skills in resolving the minor conflicts without the teacher's help. Not every single problem, of course, sometimes big problems crop up and that's why the teacher is there, but at least the little things that happen throughout the day. Is your child independent enough so that he can complete most of the tasks on his own? We find sometimes that children who aren't independent enough will not say anything and just sit at their desk without completing the work, or constantly need approval from the teacher. So they're constantly going to the teacher's desk after each task to say, is this okay? Is this the way that it needs to be done? Does your child persist with things that are difficult? Usually, teachers purposefully design lessons so that they include both tasks that are easy for the child to complete, and that just gives them a sense of accomplishment, a sense of I can do that. And then they also include tasks that are a little bit more challenging to extend the learners. And some children unfortunately have a habit of simply just shrugging and saying, I can't, I don't know how to do it, without ever really having a full go and trying to solve the problem. The problem with that is that they'll never really progress to the higher levels of academic work that we need them to be. So as I mentioned earlier, emotional maturity is to a large extent a natural process, and it just needs to develop in its own time. But there are some things that parents can do to maybe encourage that emotional development in your preschool child. Firstly, you want to maybe encourage your child to engage with unfamiliar children, unfamiliar adults in a safe and secure environment. You want to allow your child to do age-appropriate things for themselves. Try to refrain from interfering. It's so difficult, I know, but unless your child asks for your help, let them do it on their own. And when they do ask for your help, instead of just solving the problem, rather engage them in solving the problem. Have them do it with you, and you can ask them questions like, how else could we do this? Or what do you think we should do next? What do you think we should have done before? And what do you think we could have done differently? And just as important as it is to have them solve practical problems on their own, try and have them solve conflict situations and social situations with friends on their own. Try and observe what they're doing. Keep an eye. Do get involved if there's any chance that somebody's going to get hurt. But also, once the situation has been diffused, perhaps you can chat to your child afterwards and offer some solutions to say how they could have handled the situation differently in the future.